Hello all, hope you're all right. Barry here. I've been mulling. As you can see, I still have morning hair and all the usual nonsense that comes with it. And I've been watching things unfold on Twitter. It's quite difficult to watch sometimes, but that's the way it is, okay? So yesterday I was teaching the warrior teachers and we were discussing various things, not least of which is the nature of collaborative endeavours, which is what we find ourselves doing in this worst of all fights. Certainly one that I did not ever imagine I'd be having to have at 59. And I can't, for the life of me, imagine why we think this isn't normal. The scrapping, right? You want to have a scrap, have a scrap. Okay, that's fine, have a scrap. That's what people in collaborative endeavours do. We have a scrap. But that scrap eventually, sooner or later, will end and form into something that becomes a new idea or a new way of thinking or a new process. So it's most upsetting to see people who I respect and have time for going at each other's throats in what seems to be an intensely emotionalized environment to me. I'm not a fan of emotions. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. I think emptying your emotional bowels in public should be a crime punishable by being dropped from a plane into the center of the Siberian wilderness, right? So I'm not really that emotional. Well, I don't care what you feel, tell me what you think, right? So I watched all this happen and it all seemed to be happening on the back of a post from the BBC. So I thought, we'll do a bit of research on this and find out what the hell is going on. So that's where it came from, the BBC article about Russia. Okay, about Russia. And I want you to bear in mind, while I'm having my mole, the following. What do we think? What do we know? What can be proof? Okay, bear that in mind while I'm mulling. So I went off and scrolled about it, a bit of squirreling, to see what I could find around the situation in Russia. And it's very difficult. Very difficult to find anything, not least of all because there is a language barrier. And secondly, not many people in the West are paying attention to the kind of minutiae that article represents. Needless to say, the first thing I discovered was, of course, that the BBC were being disingenuous in that post. So that's the first thing you need to understand. The post is fake news. Now let me tell you why. In 2013, one of the hard left, i.e. communist, MPs in Russia tabled a motion against the LGBTQ community. Right, the hard left against the LGBT community. That eventually became law in Russia in 2013, which meant that you could not promote LGBTQ to under 18s. Right? Now, I've had a discussion with people about this over the last few days. That is not the same as Section 28. It's not, right? So we need to take into account Russia, first of all. So when we think about this is my personal opinion. If you don't agree with me, fine. This is my personal opinion, right? Big, huge. Russia is a massive place, right? Many different cultures, a particularly large agrarian culture, a particularly large rural culture, really quite stunningly juxtaposed against somewhere metropolitan like Moscow. And I eventually heard from somebody who has a friend who lives in Moscow who said there's no problem for gay people in Moscow at all. Right? There isn't. They're doing all right. They've got their clubs, they're doing their thing, they're doing what they have to do. And they're getting on with it. Right? However, what we've seen happen in Russia, or we're seeing happen in Russia, is the same we are seeing happening here. LGBTQI, whoever they are, is nothing to do with gays and lesbians. Now, when Russia reacted in 2013 to what they saw as an impending threat from individualism to a communist state, essentially, a state which has great control, was they reacted to the idea that you could tell a child it's okay to choose to be gay. It's not a choice, right? In that much, it resonates with Section 28. But this was Russia's initial reaction to what they saw as the dangers of the things we fight today. Because they saw it before we did, because they've been there before. They know where equity ends. LGBTQ, whatever the hell they want to call the acronym, is a hard left, dangerous equity movement that will, if allowed free rein, kill. How do I know this? Well, you've only got to go back into the 20th century and look at the history of what happens when we start doing this nonsense. You know exactly where it ends. Exactly. And I was always fascinated, and I have this conversation with the warrior teachers. How is it we know so much about the Holocaust, but we don't know much about the Holodomor? Well, the answer to that is fairly simple, really. The Russians were our allies during the war. We didn't want to cast aspersions on the fact they killed millions. See how deeply complicated it gets? So therefore, nobody spoke about the Holodomor after the war until we introduced the Gulag Archipelago. And we still don't teach children about the Holodomor in any way as seriously as we do the Holocaust. I'm not even sure we're teaching them the Holocaust anymore. Russia is a complicated beast, right? A complicated beast. And even though Putin's up there as this kind of overarching figure, trying to keep his hand on the tail of the tiger that Russia is, you have to get your head around the scale of the place. A country that has extreme wealth and extreme poverty. There is a distribution there that's massive. A country that has massive rural areas with very traditional ways of thinking and seeing that came straight out of the Soviet Union, which collapsed in the 80s. You think this is simply about chasing a few gay people? It's not. So in 2013, that law was passed to protect children under 18. Is it me, or is that what we're trying to do? What do we think? What do we know? What can we prove? Fast forward to the recent changes. The recent changes are they've added to that list and expanded it. So they said it's now not just under 18s, it's everybody. And we are going to categorise LGBTQ, hands, knees and bumps of daisy groups, as an extremist group, which is exactly what they are. Exactly what they are. And these new amendments, from what I can discover, so hard to find out anything about what's going on over there, from what I can discover, specifically target gender identity theory, queer theory, and paedophilia. It's got nothing to do with gays and lesbians. Nothing whatsoever. But it's easy for me to say that because I've done 3.5 hours research trying to find it. It's not so easy when we as an organisation or as an individual who are in this fight to protect the rights of people read something from the BBC that is false, demonstrably false in terms of its tenor and the lens and the direction from which it's coming, but is designed to provoke the kind of reactions from people that we are seeing across the board. This is dangerous because if you're the toughest radfem GC in the world who thinks all men should be buried up to their neck in shit, right the way through to a mad men's rights activist who thinks all women should be chained to a bench, right? Doesn't matter. It's the children we're trying to protect. It's the children. What they are doing in Russia is a Russian response, understanding the environment of Russia, understanding the history of Russia, understanding the geography of Russia, in an attempt to prevent the virus that is critical social justice, because it's not just about gender anymore. The virus that is critical social justice that has infiltrated every part of our society, from doing to them what it's doing to us. We are currently a laughingstock around the world, an absolute laughingstock. In any collaborative endeavour, which is what this is, various people will get together from various places who have they see the same things, they have the same questions, but they never met. Somebody's not gone, right, here's the rule book, go and have a read of that for an hour and then go and get involved. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that me, for example, my warrior teachers, I was speaking to people yesterday from Australia, from Spain, from France. We'd have never found each other if it wasn't for the fact where we asked that first fundamental question. Why is it I feel uncomfortable with this? Why is my instinct that something is wrong to its core kicking in when everybody else is celebrating? If we hadn't made that fundamental connection that there was something wrong, and then had the power and the strength of purpose and the courage to find others like us and come together in order to fight these appalling belief systems that are being indoctrinated into not just our children, but our university students too. If we hadn't done that and come together, none of us would know each other. Collaborative movements such as ours fall out all the damn time. All the damn time. And we change and form and reform and collaborate again on issues or various things that we can all get behind. This is the nature of the game. And it's a game that's played in the absence of emotion. It is a game that's played recognizing that I can be angry as hell with one person, but it doesn't change the fact that I have respect for them and I think their opinion matters and they're part of the fight. But I'm not going to display it in public. So here's what I think is going on and why I think it needs to stop. And this is just me being honest, and I'm, as ever, tell me if I'm a twat. Stick it in the doobies. Right? We are now in a position, we've reached the position where there are people who have helped with our work and ongoing stuff who are representative of the enemy. And the enemy is the unreality of gender and the unreality of the Gender Recognition Act, the unreality of the Yoga Carta principles, the unreality of what is happening. And although they may have helped us so far, from my perspective only, if I was a group, I'm just me. I would never be a member of a group that would have me as a member, right? I'm just me. It is time to say goodbye. It is time to say thank you for your help. Thank you for what you've done so far. But our fight lies outside of your domain now. Because we cannot run with the fox and the hounds. If you want to provide a service to people who are detransitioning, feel free, do it. But you cannot also be involved in the eradication of gender identity ideology from schools. If you want to be working with young people who are very confused, who think this is real, and you want to start an educational thing to educate them that this is just dangerous nonsense, then you cannot have connection with the dangerous nonsense that you are attempting to tell them is not real. And this is not because I'm mad at any individual. I'm saying the boundaries are being drawn. It's time. And this is a great thing because it means we're moving towards the end game. It means we're moving towards the end game. From my perspective, just me, I will no longer engage with, have anything to do with, or collaborate with anybody who lives in a nonsensical world of dress up. It's that simple. Because from our perspective now, the damage to children is so great that we can't do it anymore. So I had this conversation with a chap I know, likes to be a bit of a knicker fumbler, right? Gay guy, early 30s, sometimes dresses up and he likes to play around with gender. And he said to me, I'm not that. He said, I'm a gay man. He said, I just happen to like doing that for the fun of it occasionally and because I get a bit of a kick of it in the bedroom. Fine. Keeps it in his bedroom, does it in his bedroom, doesn't bother anybody else. Fine. We cannot run with the hare and the hounds. To the people that have helped, whoever you may be, thank you for your help, I would say. But it's time for you to go. And when it comes to what we read and how we react to what we read, what do we think? What do we know? What can we prove? Because if there's been a knee-jerk reaction to an article, and I was saying very earlier on, there's more to this. Don't take this at face value, because I already knew about the situation in Russia due to my contacts over there. Most people in Russia who are gay live in metropolitan cities, which are just as metropolitan as most other cities around the world. They don't live in rural Russia. Our understanding of the cultural musts and the societal interactions of Russia, be that rural or metropolitan, is practically zero. But I can tell you this much. What they've done in Russia is more aligned to what we need to do than anything I've seen elsewhere. Because gender identity ideology is a dangerous, parasitical virus that sits alongside critical race theory, critical environmentalism, and queer theory as an existential threat to gay youth. An existential threat. And an existential threat to children across the board. Across the board. So from my perspective, I think I need to make sure that I hold myself to account by saying what you just read. You want to do a bit of work on that? You want to have a look and see what's in the background? You want to see why that's happening? What exactly does it mean? Because even the worst homophobe in Russia has said, I've got no interest in what people do in their private lives, but the LGBTQ hands, knees and bumps of daisy people, he didn't say that, I said that, are a political movement. They are an extremist organisation, and it is their wish to corrupt, bring down and destroy Western values. And if you haven't got that yet, then you need to do a bit of reflection and think about where we are. Anyway, that's just me having a moan. Other than that, become a warrior teacher, because this is the stuff we do. This is the conversations we have. We had it all day yesterday because I put it in the groups, the Russian thing, and went, right, we need to talk about this. We know bugger all about the reality of the situation. What the amendments did that have just been added gender identity and paedophilia to extremist views in Russia. I'm okay with that. Right? Doing a little bit of research sometimes helps. And, we've all got the same aim. We may not like each other, but we've all got the same aim. If you're on one of those funny... Do you remember those things in years ago they used to have on television where they were going down the railways and you have to push them up and down like that? And you have one person on one end and one person on the other, okay? You don't have to like the person on the other end of the machine. Well, I don't know what that's called. Somebody tell me, right? You don't have to like them. You don't have to agree with them about everything. But you do have to agree with them about the direction. When we get it wrong, we say so. We fail gracefully and we fail quickly. All the easier to stand up. And we are all going to make mistakes as we go forward. And sometimes it's going to be painful. And sometimes it will hurt. And sometimes you want to just string somebody up by their Buster Browns. But we'll get there. At least I believe that. This is why I'm not involved directly in anything. Because then I can sit and pontificate. Anyway, I may well just be nuts, you know that, right? But I'm sure you will tell me in the dubris. Farewell.